The top 1% of earners in the United States now hold over 40% of the country's wealth. And one of the key strategies they use to maintain and multiply their net worth is by leveraging debt. This may seem counterintuitive, as debt is often associated with financial struggle. But for the ultra-wealthy, it's a calculated tool that can significantly amplify their returns on investment. In 2020, the collective wealth of the world's billionaires increased by over $1.9 trillion, with many of them using debt to fuel their business ventures and investments. This debt-driven approach has far-reaching consequences that affect not just the wealthy, but also the global economy and individual consumers. For instance, when billionaires take on massive amounts of debt to finance their investments, they can drive up asset prices, making it more difficult for ordinary people to afford basic necessities like housing and healthcare. In countries like the United States, the UK, and Australia, the gap between the rich and the poor is growing, with the wealthy using debt to further entrench their positions of power and influence. The numbers are stark. In the US, the wealthiest 10% of the population now hold over 70% of the country's wealth, while the bottom 50% hold less than 1%. So, how do the ultra-wealthy use debt to their advantage? It starts with their ability to access cheap credit, often through complex financial instruments like leveraged loans and bonds. These instruments allow them to borrow massive sums of money at extremely low interest rates, which they can then use to invest in high-yield assets like real estate, stocks, and private equity. By using debt to amplify their investments, the wealthy can generate returns that far outstrip the interest they owe on their loans, effectively creating a self-reinforcing cycle of wealth creation. This approach is not without risk, however, as it relies on the continued stability of the global financial system and the ability to service the debt. One of the key players in this game is the private equity industry, which has grown exponentially over the past few decades. Private equity firms use debt to acquire companies, which they then restructure and sell for a profit. This approach has been incredibly successful, with many private equity firms generating returns of 20% or more per year. However, it also has significant consequences for the companies involved, as well as the broader economy. When private equity firms load companies with debt, they can create a significant burden that can lead to job losses, reduced investment, and decreased competitiveness. Another strategy used by the ultra-wealthy is to use debt to minimize their tax liabilities. By taking on debt to finance their investments, they can reduce their taxable income, which in turn reduces the amount of tax they owe. This approach is often used in conjunction with other tax minimization strategies, such as offshore accounts and complex financial structures. While these strategies are often legal, they can be highly aggressive and can contribute to the erosion of the tax base, which in turn can lead to decreased government revenues and increased inequality. The use of debt by the ultra-wealthy also has significant implications for the global economy. When the wealthy take on massive amounts of debt, they can create systemic risk, which can have far-reaching consequences in the event of a financial crisis. This is because debt is often used to finance highly leveraged investments, which can quickly become unstable if the underlying assets decline in value. In 2008, the global financial crisis was triggered in part by the excessive use of debt by financial institutions and other investors, which led to a massive collapse in asset values and a deep recession. In addition to the risks, the use of debt by the ultra-wealthy also raises important questions about fairness and equality. When the wealthy use debt to amplify their investments, they can create a self-reinforcing cycle of wealth creation that is difficult for others to access. This can perpetuate inequality and limit social mobility, as those who are already wealthy are able to use debt to further entrench their positions of power and influence. Furthermore, the use of debt by the ultra-wealthy can also contribute to the erosion of the social contract, as governments are forced to cut back on public services and investment in order to service their own debt obligations. The relationship between debt and wealth is complex and multifaceted, and it's not always easy to understand the implications of the ultra-wealthy using debt to multiply their net worth. However, one thing is clear. The use of debt by the wealthy is a key driver of inequality and instability in the global economy. As such, it's essential that policymakers and regulators take a closer look at the ways in which debt is being used by the ultra-wealthy and consider reforms that can help to mitigate the risks and promote greater fairness and equality. The use of debt by the ultra-wealthy is a powerful tool that can have far-reaching consequences for the global economy and individual consumers. While it's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, it's essential that we understand the implications of this approach and take steps to promote greater transparency and accountability. By doing so, we can help to create a more stable and equitable financial system that works for everyone, not just the ultra-wealthy. In the end, the ultra-wealthy use of debt as a tool to multiply their net worth is a sobering reminder that the rules of the game are often stacked in favor of those who already hold power and influence. The ultra-wealthy will continue to use debt to maintain and grow their wealth, and it is up to the rest of us to understand the implications of this approach and demand greater fairness and equality in the financial system. The use of debt by the ultra-wealthy is a stark illustration of the system's inequities, and it's time for us to reframe our understanding of wealth creation and the role of debt in the economy. The wealthy using debt to get wealthier is not a bug. It is a feature of the financial system, and recognizing this is the first step towards creating a more equitable society.